This is ChangeMakers with Katie Gore, finding the right solutions for the affordable housing community.
This week's ChangeMaker is Wilson Kimball, the President and CEO of the Municipal Housing Authority for the City of Yonkers. Wilson's team owns and manages a variety of properties and provides affordable, stable, decent, and safe housing opportunities in Yonkers, New York. Wilson, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Katie.
You've been involved with the City of Yonkers for years, and prior to running the Housing Authority, you served as the Commissioner of Planning and Development. So, how has your path to housing and development evolved over the years?
So my first job outside of working in the governor's office in New York State was to work at Battery Park City Authority, which is near Ground Zero in Lower Manhattan. And we did housing and commercial buildings down there. We owned the land and they were on land leases. And there were major developers there. It was Milstein and others. And they actually did the first green building, the Solaire. So that was LEED certified, first one in the country. So that was sort of the background of me doing real estate development and doing environmental, green, sustainable development. Then I came up to Yonkers, as you say, as planning commissioner. And in my tenure with Mayor Spano, which lasted about 9 years, we invited in, I should say, private developers who had previously not looked at Yonkers, but Yonkers is 28 minutes from Grand Central on the express train. There's a Yonkers stop. There's actually multiple stops on both the east and the west side of Yonkers. And it's on the Hudson River, so it's really a magical place, in my opinion. And we invited developers who had never been here before to come and look at Yonkers. And $4 billion of private investment later, we are seeing a real transformation of this beautiful city on the hills.
You know, that is quite the economic renaissance, and $4 billion in private investment. I mean, that's substantial. I'm assuming there were, affordable housing units incorporated into that. How has that investment worked for the affordable housing component?
Yonkers was under a double desegregation order. They had both a busing order and a school order in the 80s. And so, and a housing order and a busing. We have been a city in transition for 40 years, I would say. Most of the affordable housing at that time was on the west side and the southwest corner, which were traditionally redlined neighborhoods. And so the desegregation order sort of forced affordable housing to be put in what I call the all quadrants of the city. The city is 18 square miles, over 200,000 people, the third largest in New York State. And so it really spread the affordable housing around. And then when the mayor came in, he worked with the city council and they passed an affordable housing ordinance. And that required a 10% inclusionary of affordable housing in all the market rate development. And so we saw literally thousands of apartments come on the market, which meant hundreds of affordable housing units all along the Hudson River, which was really where most of the development happened. I mean, we've had big private commercial investment, like iFly came in, Century 21, the department store, which, sadly during COVID is now defunct, but we were actually opening retail when everyone said retail was dead. And so that mixed use really is driving continued change. So now we have Lionsgate opening on our west side near the Hudson. And again, the housing market is still booming here. And we're also lucky, not only do we have beautiful Hudson River views, but we also have the 87 thruway, New York State Thruway corridor that runs through the city. And those developments, whether it's Home Depot or Stu Leonard's or Cross County Shopping Center, all of those have had very good, a lot of people work there and a lot of people visit there. So they have seen the housing around that area boom as well.
So what do you think the future of affordable housing in Yonkers is going to look like? I mean, more of this mixed use and, more expansion of affordable housing, or are there some other strategic objectives that you guys are incorporating?
So right before I left the mayor's office and the commissioner of planning, There were a lot of residential developers that were looking at old strip malls, especially along Central Park Avenue, and thinking, well, we no longer need this giant building for whatever, Pier 1 imports or something. Why don't we reconfigure this strip mall, which has sort of a front and a back, and mix residential in with that? So I think we're going to see a lot of more creative places for residential to exist here in Yonkers in particular because of the way that the city was laid out. But I also believe that we, here at Macy, we really prefer to have our affordable housing units be part of a mixed income building. So not all affordable, a mixed, of all economic genres. And I think we also are looking forward to building our own housing. I am pushing currently senior housing, disabled housing, because of a study that Westchester County did in 2019, indicating those are the areas that need the most housing, but also green housing. So our senior building that I'm working on now, which will probably break ground in 2022, will be passive house. So we're gonna mix it up. We're gonna make it a little bit more interesting. But I think there's a lot to do here in the county and in the city that will make affordable housing a place where people can age in place. And that's really my goal as I'm aging in place, as it were.
That's fantastic to be able to have some new development that your organization is actually pursuing. How are you guys going about that? Are you, using RFPs or other kinds of HUD programs? What is that looking like as you guys plan for new construction?
So we have two new construction. We have the senior housing, which we're calling La Mora to reflect our largely Hispanic population, which means Mulberry, and it's on Mulberry Street. That is going to be done with 4% low-income housing tax credits and other mix of financing through New York State Housing and Community Renewal. That is for seniors, and it's passive. It's about 60 units. I'm pretty excited about that. The County of Westchester, George Latimer is the county executive. He's very committed to affordable housing as well. So his office actually called us and said, listen, we hear you're doing this project, and we'd actually love to give you some HIF money for improvements around the building. And we thought, well, okay, we'll take it. Thank you so much.
Nice.
The other project we're working on is with the community builders, and that is the final phase of a 6-phase development that started about a decade ago, and it was replacement public housing for a development called Cottage Place Gardens. And so we are looking at doing that with the community builders as 50-50 partners, because we did RAD conversions here of our other units, which was $750 million. We had multiple partners, and it was over 5 years, and we're finishing up that conversion this year.
So what do you think the community's approach has been to RAD? How have they received that, or how have you guys navigated that?
So like other developers, we're having issue with supply chain issues of getting refrigerators and other items for our RAD conversion. But we're, plowing forward, and we are working with Senator Schumer and Gillibrand and Congressman Jamal Bowman on addressing the potential IRS tax implications of being late with our RAD conversions, that just the ones that happened during COVID. They've all been very receptive to our issues and our concerns, and they're working through those issues. But our experience with RAD has been very positive, mostly because when we worked with the private developers, we were able to do massive renovations on buildings that hadn't been renovated in over 50 years, in some cases not at all. We were able to bring them up to a much better living standard, which it was shocking and appalling to me, having just come here a year ago, to see the kind of conditions that people were living in. It was not acceptable. And it freed up some cash. And so what we've been doing with the cash is we've been putting it back into the developments and back into the affordable housing tenants. We've done a public arts program. We are able, obviously, to invest in a higher level of green, passive house for our seniors. And we're just doing more programming. Our service coordinator program through the Ross grants had expired. We re-upped it with this, cash that was freed up due to RAD. And been able to give back more to the tenants. And I think that's really valuable, not only to give them a beautiful place to live, but also to provide programming. We made a partnership with the public library, and we had somebody build bookshelves so that the library could come and drop off books, and our tenants didn't have to go to the public library, and they could get special library cards. And we've had some really fabulous, diverse local artists do murals and other public art installations so that these buildings became more of a home and less of an institution.
So, Wilson, let's bust some myths about affordable housing. We just talked about community, and over the last couple of weeks, you and your team released a profile of residents who live in subsidized housing. So tell us more about the what and the whys, regarding this type of information you guys have now put out as far as, really just advocating for people and affordable housing.
Thanks for pointing that out, Katie. I think it's important because we have been trying to put more Section 8 vouchers out into the community with smaller landlords and market rate landlords. And every time I talk to different landlords across that spectrum, there seemed to be some pushback. There was definitely some preconceived notions about who Section 8 tenants are. They thought that they were welfare cheats and they had multiple children and they needed huge apartments and that they lived in the system forever. And none of those things are true. I mean, our population, which is thousands of people, is predominantly Hispanic, most of whom are seniors. If you are not a senior and you live in our housing or have a Section 8 voucher, you are likely to transition out of Section 8 housing within 5 years. Most of our units are 1 and 2 bedrooms. So that means, at most probably 2 children. And there just isn't that sort of preconceived notion that I think was sort of touted on TV shows and in politics and conversation in the 80s. And almost all of our tenants also have jobs or income. So whether it's SSI or their average household income is only $21,000. So, these people are underemployed. They're working hard, but they're just not making ends meet. And I think it was important to get that message out so that we could really retrain the way the public thinks about tenants in public housing and understand that not every opportunity is presented to everyone equally. And so there are plenty of good people out there who are trying their best, but just for 100 different reasons, not succeeding.
I love how you phrased that. You said retrain how the public thinks. And with the pandemic, we've all realized how close everyone is to income, housing, and really health instability. And I also love how you're confronting all of those housing misconceptions. Okay, well, hang on, Wilson. We have to take a break, but coming up in the second part of my discussion with Wilson Kimball, the president and CEO of the Municipal Housing Authority for the City of Yonkers, Wilson talks about what surprised her the most when she took the top job in Yonkers.
I could not believe that despite the fact that we had so many properties, we weren't recycling, which sounds ridiculous, but it was like an oh wow moment.
Thanks for listening to ChangeMakers with Katie Gore. To find out more about Katie, go to quadel.com. That's QUADEL.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.